Welcome to Eden Hope Academy. Are you ready for week number 4? I am so excited about week number 4. Get out your books and give it a wiggle, and let's go to our first part. And we have Miss Faith. She is in our Purcellville campus, and she's right there. Oh, and Gigi and Faith are two of my favorite people. And Gigi is in Purcellville. Jack is in Richmond. And then on this side, we have Hadassah, who's in Midland, and my precious Jack. Jack is 16, so he is really tall now. I look up at him. So let's start out with our Bible verse, and make sure if you see these kids during the week that you say hello to them. Through wisdom, a house is built, and by understanding, it is established. By knowledge, the rooms are filled with precious and pleasant riches. I love that verse. Now, do they mean just a house, or do they mean a person? Do they mean like the whole person, like who you are as a person, what you project to people when you see them? You're right. It's everything about you. And it's what you're going to build when you're an adult and you have your own husband or wife and you have a house with your own kids. I know that you're going to build your house with wisdom, and understanding is established by knowledge, and the rooms are filled with precious and present things. That is just knowing God and walking with Him. Such a cool verse. So in this verse, I want you to draw a house that is filled with God's goodness. Can you do that? Excellent. All right, the next part is the British First Lord of the Admiralty. I think we need to say that more importantly. Can you say it with me? The British First Lord of the Admiralty, Winston Churchill. Actually, he's one of my favorite people, if you must know. Let's look at a picture of him. There's Winston Churchill. Hi, Winston. Everyone say, hi, Winston Churchill. He's such a cool guy. So he was an admiral in the British Navy. And he was like a fearless guy. One of the things that I think is really fun about Winston Churchill is he went to battle in World War I. And he was in battle with his troops, even though he was, very, very high up. And he was aristocracy. And his mom was an American, just got to say. So even though all of that, he went to actual battles, but he always brought his bathtub with him. And so he would have this big bathtub, and he'd have a little portable heater, and he'd heat up water for himself. And he would take tubbies in the middle of war zones because he liked to have his bath. And I just always thought that was funny. Another story about him was he visited the White House one time, and apparently he called a secretary, and it was a male secretary, to take notes for him. And he was bobbling in his tubby and talking to him, which, apparently the guy really liked to take his tubbies. All right, so Winston Churchill, Woodrow Wilson, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, French Prime Minister George Clemenceau, known as the Tiger, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, remember him, we talked about him a couple of times, were leaders in World War I, allied against Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, remember him with the cool hat? And then it says, now you can all sing them in harmony. No, Kaiser, it's not harmony. It's harmony. Okay, so we're just learning who the key players are here. So we're just remembering that it's Winston Churchill, who we're going to talk so much more about because he's a cool guy. And we're going to talk about Woodrow Wilson, and we're just talking about the people who were part of World War I, because it's just important that you have those people in your head. And so then at the bottom, it talks about the Treaty of Versailles. So the Treaty of Versailles ended World War I, and we're going to talk about it right here. And so basically it says the Treaty of Versailles ended World War I, but marked the beginning of World War II. Because the Germans thought it was terribly unfair to them, and which it really was. And the Japanese felt that they had been ignored, which they were. And as a result, the Germans thought they had a reason to start a new fight, and the Japanese thought they had no choice but to gain respect through military force. So what we want you to do here is draw a picture of the Treaty of Versailles, because it is so important. It's just so important that we remember what the Treaty of Versailles was about, and we remember most of the key players from it. And think about the difference it would have been if another treaty had been passed. Okay, so now we're going to talk about David Livingstone. He was a Scottish missionary who sought to reach people in the interior of Africa. and introduce them to Christianity and end the slave trade. So David Livingstone was before this. He was about 60 years before this, but we didn't want to forget him because he's so important. And so in 1866, he set off to find the source of water for the Nile. After nothing was heard from him for many months, Henry Stanley, an explorer and journalist, set out to find Livingstone. This resulted in their meeting near a lake in October of 1871, during which Stanley uttered the famous words, "Mr. Livingstone, I presume." So basically, David Livingstone set off for Africa to tell people about Jesus Christ. And at the time when missionaries would set off for Africa in the 1860s, do you know what they would do? They would pack everything not in suitcases, but in their coffin. And they would do that because they never expected to return, and they just wanted a coffin to be buried in. So I'm not sure if David Livingstone did that, but that would have been common for him to just assume that he would never see his family again. But it was that important that he tell people about Jesus Christ. So really cool guy, definitely a guy to read about. All right, next are, and link it to me. So link. If you don't have someone to link with, you can link with me because I like you. Okay, so link with me. All right, our verse states, "Through wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches." Money can be stolen, one moth can destroy all of your clothing, and your friends can betray you. So what has lasting value? Our relationship with God guides and leads us here on earth, but it's also eternal. It will never go away. God will never stop loving you. That's so cool. In our verse, God tells us that through wisdom is built. How can you build your house or yourself right now with wisdom? How can you do that? Can you think of ways? My favorite thing is what? To be so dependent on God that I am independent of the world. That's so important to me. I think about that all the time. I always want to wait before I make decisions and ask God, God, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to react? Or how do you want me to treat that person? It's so important. So you need to tell your mom how you do that. All right, understanding God through prayer, worship, and reading the Bible establishes us. Last year we memorized Martha Kilpatrick's phrase, "I want to be so dependent on God that I am independent of the world." Our verse says it, the verse this week says that in a different way. Same thing. The world may be enveloped in wars, but we can still stand strong in Jesus. So no matter what's going around us, we can still stand strong in Jesus Christ. All right, so now the picture up here is important. They're all important, but this one's really important because it tells a story. So after World War I, the Germans had the Weimar Republic, and they had hyperinflation. And hyperinflation is, now remember, they had been treated fairly unfortunately with the Treaty of Versailles. They were told they had to give back a ton of money. Their cities had primarily all been bombed. The men who had gone off the war, many of them died, so there weren't that many men to do work. They had women who were hurting or without their husbands. They had little kids running around who had never been educated, had nothing. And so it was just a really bad time and a really bad place. And so they had the government. They got rid of Kaiser Wilhelm. He went to the Netherlands. And they started the Weimar Republic. And they had 3 years of hyperinflation. And hyperinflation is what starts as the government starts printing more money. And as the government prints more money, people buy things, but they buy them quicker. So the velocity goes up of money, of buying things. So, for example, if you go to the grocery store today and the shelves are filled with wonderful things to eat, and you're just a little bit hungry, you might pick out an apple, or you might think, tomorrow I need something for dinner, so I'll pick up dinner for my family, and I need this or that, I need some shampoo, But if you hear that the money that you have today is not going to be able to pay for but half of what you can use it for tomorrow, what will you do? You'd go crazy, right? You'd start buying more stuff in the store because you would think, well, I want to buy as much as I can because my money isn't going to be worth that much in the future. And so that's what a lot of people did. So they bought and bought and bought and bought, and they spent their money as fast as they could, and then the government had to print more and more and more and more and more to keep up with it. And it turns into what's called hyperinflation, where a dollar is now worth less than a penny. So a stack of $100 bills would be so useless, you might use them to heat your stove with. They would be just kind of useless because you would need like $1 million just to buy a loaf of bread or something very simple. So it's called hyperinflation. It just basically destroys an economy. And here we have children playing with stacks of money, and here you have a woman who is feeding her stove with cash because it's so valueless because of hyperinflation. So, the war machines of World War I were tanks, U-boats, and submarines. They held ground deep in the trenches. These were the inventions worth honorable mentions. So that is right here for that thing, and we're supposed to just remember the types of machines that were used in World War I, and that becomes important for World War II because they hadn't used tanks before. In fact, there was one battle in World War I where the Polish people greeted people on horses who had tanks, and it didn't go well for the Poles at all. It's very unfortunate. So it was a time when we were coming out of fighting with horses and wagons and cannons and that type of thing to like machine guns and much more deadly forces. So it was a really sad time for all of these innovations as well. Okay, and finally, it's the Northern Europeans yodel. Austria, Belgium, Denmark, and the Netherlands. Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Germany, and Poland are considered the Northern European countries. And so I want you to draw just a little bit right up here. And that's it for that map. So that is it, and we're going to go on to Wilson's 14-point speech in just a second, and I'll see you then.